Association Treasurer. Your student association strives to bring an exciting and memorable experience to all students at SUNYIT. We value everyone's opinion, and we look forward to making lasting relationships across campus. May this year be, with your help, exhilarating for all. And now, your SUNYIT's acting president, Dr. Robert Geer.
So welcome. I'm going to keep my remarks brief. I only have 20 pages, and we'll fly right through it. And no matter where you go, no matter what institution, whether it's students, faculty, staff, no one likes to sit in the front row. So, you're in good company. Welcome to SUNYIT's 2013 Convocation. As Jacob mentioned, I'm Robert Geer. I'm acting president here. It's wonderful to see everyone here today. It's very exciting. I want to extend a special welcome to our freshmen, the members of the class of 2017, as well as our returning students, faculty, staff, and guests. And our featured speaker, Dr. Christopher Nyberg, who you'll hear more about Dr. Nyberg and his work in just a moment. I joined SUNYIT as acting president on August 1st, so I'm still learning my way around. I've only gotten lost in Donovan Hall once, so I'm hoping that's it. I came from the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering in Albany, where I served as a vice president for academic affairs and chief academic officer. And over the last 17 years, CNSE has grown to be a $15 billion research, education, and economic development enterprise. I can't take credit for all of that. But I'm looking forward to applying my experience there to a lot of the exciting things you have going on here. So I'm very happy to be here. I think I walked in at a wonderful time, as our campus has a rich history in the region, and it's absolutely poised for dramatic growth, not only as an education and research entity, but also as an economic development leader in the Mohawk Valley. Now, Convocation is a very old tradition in the academic world. We come together as a learning community to start the new semester, start the new academic year. For our freshmen, this is the start of your next 4 years. All right, this is the start of your academic journey. It's the beginning of the college experience. It's a very exciting time, and we're all very glad to share in that. And this is a particularly exciting time to be part of SUNYIT. I was very, very happy that I got to participate in the move-in of the freshmen this year. My back's recovered, so after carrying things up steps. And I'm glad we're not one of those wimpy campuses that have many, many elevators to take things up the steps in the dorm. We move it by the sweat of our brow. But as I mentioned, this is a very exciting time to be part of SUNYIT. As you may have seen on the other side of the campus, it's got a low profile now, will be rising. We have a major construction project underway. In the coming months, the Computer Chip Commercialization Center, or Quad-C for the 4 Cs, will be completed. This is a $125 million partnership with the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering, and it's a key component of Governor Andrew Cuomo's vision for revitalizing the regional economy through a reimagining of how higher education prepares people for success. And so it's really looking at SUNY not only as a place for an education, but as a much broader resource, which I think is an incredibly important sort of revisioning of what SUNY can be. I think it benefits the students dramatically, since the goal when you leave here is to find a career, find a job, find a way to move yourself forward. I think it's also very exciting that in the governor's strategy, SUNYIT is a vital part, and you need look no further than what's happening just across the way. When completed, this facility next to Kinsella Hall will comprise a 200,000 square foot building with a 50,000 square foot 2-level clean room. Now, this will be the first such clean room anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, and it's happening here at SUNYIT. All right, so that's, I think, a dramatic and amazing thing. And we'll be working very closely with M&W Group, the people who are building that, to make sure the students, faculty, and staff are involved all along the way, so you have a chance to learn what it's about, how it's going up, what it's going to be used for. It really is going to be part of this campus. A second component of Governor Cuomo's economic revitalization strategy for New York, the Marcy Nano Center, which is really on the edge of the campus, really just across the street over there, is being readied. All right, it's being prepared to be a home for cutting-edge nano manufacturing that will truly transform central New York. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to be in the northeastern part or the eastern part of the state. There's a company called Global Foundries. Many of you, if you have a cell phone, you have their chips. Over the last several years, have built an amazing fabrication facility there. And if you've seen it, it's truly an awe-inspiring site. That's exactly what we're preparing to have here. And I'm hoping, with the diligent work of our partners, Mohawk Valley Edge, we can really make this a reality. All right, now it will cause traffic to increase, I won't lie to you, but it'll be fantastic to have such a facility nearby in the future. And I think a lot of people are working very hard to make that happen. Now, through Governor Cuomo's leadership, the public-private partnership model the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering has pioneered, these are going to lead to exciting opportunities, yes, for New York State, but they're going to be exciting opportunities for the students here and the faculty and the staff. In fact, the construction of Quad C has already led to several internships for our civil engineering technology students. And one of those students, I'm happy to say, has been hired as a full-time employee of M&W. That's a very exciting impact before the building has even really come above ground level. Although the first wall was put up yesterday, so I guess I can't say that now. And to be honest, I expect many, many more similar opportunities will arise. In fact, this will become old news, this type of opportunities presented to students. As New York's public polytechnic, SUNYIT has had a unique place in the SUNY family for many decades. These initiatives, the Quad C, the Marcy Nano Center, will continue SUNYIT's transformation to fulfill both our historical mission and the needs of the 21st century workforce in support of a revitalized upstate New York economy. Now, let me be clear, this economy demands a technology-savvy workforce, but it's much broader than just engineers. Not only in engineering science, that goes without saying, but in healthcare, business, communications, a host of interdisciplinary fields. This doesn't just impact one sector, it impacts all of them. And I think, although I spent most of my life without having Facebook or Twitter, and some of you cannot say that, but when you look at the dramatic changes that social media has had, it affects everything that we do. So no matter what profession you're in, you're going to be touched by that. It's very same with the types of facilities we have here that drive that revolution, all right? It's going to touch people across a wide spectrum. You know, the SUNYIT's mission is reflected in a wide array of academic programs we offer as a polytechnic. So along that same line, you know, the degree programs we offer in professional studies, business, nursing, liberal arts, as well as the core offerings in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So whether you're a freshman, a new transfer student, an upperclassman, a graduate student, you're going to benefit from SUNYIT's transformation. And it's going to parallel your own college experience. Just as your intellectual growth takes place in the years ahead, the institutional growth will enrich your experience and really help guide your path to success. And we have a number of other exciting initiatives underway as well. SUNYIT is engaged in a number of significant institutional partnerships that SUNY speak for different SUNYs working together. One of these is the New York SUNY 2020 Challenge Grant Program, through which SUNY received $15 million as a leader of a consortium of 8 other SUNY institutions, including Morrisville State College, our guest speaker's home campus. So I want to conclude by wishing you success this year and beyond, and likewise hand this off to our provost, William Durgan, to tell you more about the challenge grant I just mentioned and introduce our convocation speaker. Thanks very much.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to talk just briefly about the importance of manufacturing to economic prosperity in the region. And I want to give some of you some news. Maybe some of you know about this already, but we have, as the President mentioned, just received a SUNY 2020 Challenge Grant. That's one of 4 in the state in this round. We received $15 million to support the Center for Global Advanced Manufacturing, what we call CGAM. Now, CGAM was founded about a year and a half ago, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But the SUNY 2020 initiative is called SMART, for the SUNY Manufacturing Alliance for Research and Technology Transfer. We have oversight here at SUNY IT, and SMART is the educational core, the central training and educational part of the CGAM operation. Now, CGAM itself is an organization that was formed to strengthen and build economic competitiveness in the manufacturing community in New York, especially the Hudson Valley and the Mohawk Valley. CGAM's founders include, of course, SUNY IT as one of the leaders, Mount St. Mary College, Ulster Community College, the Hudson Valley Technology Development Center, and the Council of Industry, and the Solar Energy Consortium down in the Hudson Valley. CGAM has received already $1 million in support for equipment to underpin training of advanced people who can work in the advanced manufacturing industry. We here at SUNY IT have received $250,000 to buy equipment for our use here on campus in order to support the manufacturers of the region. And we are involved in the construction and establishment of a training facility at IBM in Poughkeepsie, which will soon be moved to the Nyberg Armory, which is being refurbished especially to offer a training center down in the Hudson Valley. This campus, of course, will be the training center here in the Mohawk Valley. The last piece of this is that we're just also launching a 3D printing capability down in Haverstraw, and it's part of the CGAM complex as well. So it's a pretty exciting effort to underpin and strengthen the manufacturing industries in the state of New York. The SUNY 2020 components, which are what are of interest here to us today, include laboratories here at SUNY IT, and there will be about $10 million worth of refurbishment and equipment procurement that will be installed here on this campus. We will have a cloud computing initiative that will also be based here at SUNY IT, and it will be primarily providing access to students and to industry of design and analysis software. And lastly, other smart laboratories at our partner colleges, and that really brings me to a long-winded way of getting to our guest speaker here today. The smart laboratories will be installed at Herkimer Community College, focused on quality assurance. At Westchester, there'll be an advancement training center. In Rockland, there'll be a proof of concept business and workplace center. At Orange Community College, there'll be a training center, the one I already mentioned at Nyberg. Ulster Community College is running the Advanced Design and Prototyping Center. Dutchess Community College is establishing a characterization laboratory, and the Mohawk Valley Community College right here in our neck of the woods is expanding its CNC training center. All of which brings me to the last mentioned partner, which is Morrisville. And Morrisville is focusing on agricultural manufacturing. Now, many of you probably don't think of agriculture as a manufacturing process, and that's precisely why I invited Chris to come and speak to us today, because indeed, agriculture is a manufacturing process. And manufacturing competitiveness, agricultural competitiveness, depends very much on how the operations are run and what kinds of equipment and what kinds of processes are involved. Now, Chris is very much involved in focusing on the growing and processing of hops, and it's a wonderful example of a manufacturing process. And so with that, let me introduce Chris Nyberg. Chris is currently the Dean of the School of Agriculture, Sustainability, Business, and Entrepreneurship at Morrisville State College, our sister institution just down the road a piece. So with that, Chris, it's my pleasure to turn this convocation over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for that extended applause. Maybe that's for the topic, right? I'm happy to be here partnering with SUNY IT on the SMART grant, and specifically a CGAM initiative, which we took a step farther than ag manufacturing and focused on a brewing institute. And when Provost Durgan asked that I participate today, he said, talk about hops. So the discussion today is primarily about hops, but I'll also talk a little bit about agriculture, about the amount of manufacturing that happens in agriculture, some of the new initiatives across the state. But we're going to start with the history of New York as a hops growing region, why that went away. Is this consistent? Okay. And why it's coming back. And part of it is due to a loss of manufacturing capacity in New York State. Food processing, large scale, has disappeared. We were one of the largest cabbage growing states in the region. We don't have cabbage processing anywhere in the state anymore. Agriculture is blessed. I grew up in the Midwest and thought about New York City, like all people who stereotype other regions, that it was Long Island. When you get here, it's an ag state, more of an ag state than most New Yorkers understand. So that's kind of interesting. I had a lot of help pulling this together, and the first piece of help is an ag lending institution. So Northeast Farm Lending did an ag study in 2012. New York's agricultural impact is $71 billion a year. It's one of the largest industries in New York State. Of that $71 billion, 54 of it is manufacturing, value-added processing after growing it on the farm, producing it. 2/3 of the economic impact is manufacturing and agriculture. And we've lost capacity in that sector. So it's pretty interesting. Gives us some opportunities when we think about manufacturing in New York State and the blessing we have not just in the diversity in agriculture, from forestry, environmental products, diverse food products, to the growing wine, beer, yogurt industries, dairy, one of the largest dairy producers in the country, the leader in Greek yogurt. Pretty neat stuff going on in agriculture right now. And all of that, 2/3 of the economic impact, is manufacturing. So let's go to the history. We had a large history in hops. Started in the old country, came here. If you drive around the countryside in central New York, you may see barns that look like this. They were hop houses. Different barns designed, these specifically to dry hops. Oast house is the same as a kiln. Oast means kilning, drying. And around the region, there's a number of these. I'll refer back to these images later when we look at what a modern oast in central New York looks like and why we need manufacturers to look at this industry to serve the growing demand. This was the level of technology when hops started in New York. That was the old country, this is the new. Each hop vine had its own pole to grow, lots of hand labor. Today, the state of manufacturing in New York still requires, for hops production, lots of hand labor. This is here in central New York, probably Madison or Oneida County, hand picking every hop cone off every vine. Pressing them into burlap sacks, hauling them by horse and wagon. The first hop yard, and I apologize, but I got a lot of assistance. Every photo here either came from Madison County Tourism, Madison County Historical Society, or Steve Miller, our regional hop specialist from Cornell Cooperative Extension. So I apologize for not so many Oneida references, but Madison County references. 1808 was the first hops yard in Madison County. And by the late 1800s, 90% of the nation's hops were grown right here in our region. Central New York, Mohawk Valley region. also Pacific Northwest. We had a few issues. Downy mildew, molds, they were all called hops blights at the time. Caused some hiccups with New York's production. The ultimate nail in the coffin was prohibition. Hops production in New York State did not recover, and it continued strong in the Pacific Northwest. This is the Pacific Northwest. That's your average hops field in the Willamette Valley. We are not going to compete with that. New York State right now has 115 acres of hops. That one farm has more than that. But we have a couple really neat things going for us right now. Our governor's interest, recognizing agriculture as a strong industry in New York State. That long history with some holdouts. People have been growing hops and getting renewed interest for the last 15 years. Some at a level of production so that they're the leaders now in this growing industry. A few years ago, I can remember talking to colleagues that don't talk about agriculture, talk about food. Agriculture was a dirty word. People didn't trust industrial agriculture, factory farms. People didn't trust science. So this interest in STEM, this interest in food is all interesting. And I'll tell you, the level of science, the level of integrity, the level of all of production agriculture hasn't changed. It's public interest in the local food movement that's changed that perception. 6 years ago, agriculture was a bad word, food was good. Now they're synonymous, which is wonderful. So that local food movement has created enough interest that people want to know not just where their food comes from, they want to know who grew it, who processed it, and it gives them that level of trust in food safety. And honestly, we're blessed again in this nation with high quality food safety. Our only detriment is that when we have a hiccup, we all hear about it thanks to social media. But other countries do not have the level of food safety that we do. But this local food movement has really helped the whole industry. The hops industry in New York is benefiting from that right now. And then new legislation, the Governor's Yogurt Summit, the Governor's Wine and Beer Summit, and laws focusing on helping local producers by creating farm brewery licenses, making the brewers more able to start small scale, more affordable to start off, and the growers with an incentive through the farm brewery legislation that requires farm brewers who are going to get that license to use New York State hops and barley. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So this was just a year ago, 2012. Again, thanks to Steve Miller, Cooperative Extension, the hop specialist for our region, for his data. But if you added up all of those dots, and each of those dots represents a farm with at least 100 hills of hops, the difference between red and yellow is red means over 800 plants, yellow means, red is between 100 and 800 plants, yellow is over 800 plants. Add them all up a year ago, 66 farms across New York State there growing hops. This year, there's 111 if you count all those circles. Twice as many growers with 100 hills. And that's not counting the backyard producers who put in an acre last year or just started. And that interest is very strong. To get to this point, all of those producers have a lot of investment, a lot of labor, a lot of expense, and that's where the industry growth is right now, is trying to up production to meet demand, to meet those brewers who want to serve clients who want that local beer. So an awful lot of labor putting in a hops yard, a modern hops yard, a little bit different, a little more technology, still pretty low tech. Varieties, this is another very science-based growing area. We have wild hops growing because of our history that are now becoming commercially viable. People are finding the hop in their hedgerow, in their backyard that their mother had in the garden, looking at production, looking at disease resistance, and turning that into rootstock for growers. There are a lot of varieties. The taste of the beer dictates what you should grow. Fad right now is driving market. IPAs across the region are driving which hop, and what sold last year isn't selling this year, so it's kind of fun. But two types: hops that provide different aromas and flavors, hops that provide the bittering that we all understand in beer. But the unique thing from the Central New York history is those that survive some of those blights and may have disease resistance. So after you pick your variety, put in all your hop yard, your first year, you're planting rhizomes and putting in irrigation, getting small production. Takes at least 2 years to get a decent crop, 5 years to get an established crop, and it's only going to last 12 years before you're going to be redoing this. So to get to this point, $16,000 an acre. That's where the producers are right now. That's where they can put their investment dollars. And that's where our grant's coming in to try and help those producers do the value-added processing and manufacturing to bridge that gap from startup to established business. So the products coming out of the field like this, the Farm Brewery Law requiring 20% New York hops right now, 20% all other ingredients excluding water. Most of that ingredient is grains, barley. That barley has to be malted. In a few years, by 2018, 60% local ingredients to maintain a farm brewer's license, and by 2023, 90%. So the focus of the producers is putting in more acres of hops. To bridge that gap and diminish their expense, the farm brewery legislation is allowing farm beers, wines, spirits, and ciders, not just beer, to be sold off the farm, at farmers markets, and in tasting rooms. There is a cap on production to stay within that license. Back to industrial scale. We're not going to compete with the Pacific Northwest. This is an oast drying hops. We're at this point, this season, hops coming out of the field. This is the level of technology right now in Central New York. And this is great. This is an innovative producer who designed and built his own hops picker. This machine takes that vine and puts out just hop cones separated from everything else. This is one of our leading manufacturers of hops in the region. Entrepreneur, innovator, growing hops for the last 15 years, building his own equipment. This is a piece of equipment owned by the Northeast Hops Alliance, housed at Morrisville State College, imported from Europe, $60,000 investment, World War II era technology, battleship gray, totally immobile, can't go out to the farm. So we've got the region's hops growers coming to us to turn their hops on the vine into fresh, wet hops in a basket. Pretty fun, but since all those growers are coming here to have their hops processed, this grant's going to allow us to help the development of drying, pelletizing, packaging, modifies that atmospheric packaging to help that hop product be a year-round product rather than a fresh, wet hop product. Again, this is the level of manufacturing going on the farm right now. This is a modern-day oast or kiln. A fan, a heater, some screens, and this is how all of our producers in the region are drying their hops. This is the product they want. Hops can be loose leaf, but you get more consistency, and some brewers want loose leaf hops, but to have a consistent product year-round brew, the pelletized product can help with that. Again, this is a local producer, same gentleman who built his own picker. He's got the processing capacity on his farm, enough capacity to serve his production. We're looking to put in higher level of equipment, open to the local producers to provide drying, pelletizing, modified atmospheric packaging, light resistance packaging, to keep their product as a year-round supply to meet the brewers' demand. The other thing, the second initiative that we have in the grant was the malting initiative. Barley is fairly easy to grow. We already grow cereal grains in New York. The issue is there's no processing in New York. 1 year ago, there were no maltsters in New York. Today, there are 4 potential maltsters, some in operation. Anybody know what malting does? What's malt? Oh, I'm not on an Aggie campus at all. No brewers in the bunch, only consumers. Come on. It is. It's an enzymatic process taking advantage of that seed's own function and its own enzymes to turn the carbohydrates that are starches in there into sugars. So you're essentially germinating the seed for 4 or 5 days. Takes a lot of water, takes a lot of hand labor at the level we're doing in New York. In the old world and in a lot of the facilities now, you're soaking it in a tub, you're spilling it out on a concrete floor, and you're raking it every few hours for the next few days. No level of modern processing right now. It exists. High price. We will, hopefully with this grant, put the capability to do small-scale malting in the region for the growers. Is not going to meet demand, but it will allow pilot development of the grains, different levels of malting, how long you kiln it, gives you amber malts, chocolate malts, crystal malts, how you treat that malt. To serve that industry, we need to do that product development for the local growers, maltsters, and brewers. The third leg of the Institute, hops, malting, we've got to help the brewers. And there are a lot of new brew houses in the region, taking off, doing very well. There are a lot of potentials. We'll put a pilot brewing facility in with this grant for a couple of reasons. It will serve the hop producers who are developing their own varieties to test and see what qualities their hops have to help them market those hops. Also the maltsters and any new potential brewers, provide education to get them started up. And existing brewers who are at that level of capacity where their 5-barrel, 7-barrel, 9-barrel system is in production all the time to meet demand, and they don't have the opportunity to develop the new brew. So pilot different recipes. This is designed to be a 2-barrel system, not compete with anyone in the industry, help those in the industry develop their business, bridge that investment gap to get them to the next stage, or develop new products. A couple of neat things coming up. 2 weeks, Madison County Historical Society puts on the Madison County Hop Fest in Oneida. Open to the public. There will be tastings, there will be hop events, pretty neat deal. So if you're interested in this, you can contact the Madison County Historical Society or just stop in that weekend in Oneida. For hops information, my savior to give you this talk, Steve Miller, the hops specialist for Cornell Cooperative Extension, based in Madison County. For that farm brewery legislation, which is kind of neat, it was just announced middle of the summer. There are already 40 applications in, and that data is a few weeks old, for the farm brewery licenses. And that would be Sam Filler at Empire State Development. For this institute, you can contact myself or Glenn Gaslin at Morrisville State College, and we will be putting a panel together. We've had a lot of help doing this. We drew on Cornell Cooperative Extension, Steve Miller. We drew on local producers. We had brewers from Cazenovia, Hamilton, Oneida. I took strong advantage again of Cooperative Extension, whose ag economic development person was bringing a local beer collective together, Beth McKillips. She's the Madison County Ag Development person. And their first meeting of the local beer collective was 2 days after I had the opportunity, or found out we had the opportunity to apply for this grant. So 2 days after the announcement of this proposal, We were sitting down writing this grant with local brewers, local hops producers, local potential maltsters. So we really do know the level of industry right now. This is what they're looking for. Skilled help, where we're going to help provide that labor for them, product development, and help with processing hops, processing malt. Neat opportunities for us and the community. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Yes? Yes. If I was producing anything right now in New York, I wanted to be producing hops. We're not meeting demand now. This legislation is only going to increase that. So, and because of the focus on local, the local producers are getting a premium for their hops. And local maltsters, local barley producers will be getting a premium. All of these are commodities available nationwide. You can pick up a home brewing catalog and enter and request any of them. But to get Madison County hops because you want a Madison County beer to sell in your pub because you have that demand, you can't get Madison County hops right now. So it is an opportune time to be doing that. It's such a fledgling industry, really, that there isn't enough processing, there isn't enough drying capacity, there isn't enough processing capacity, and it is time sensitive. The picker that we have on campus, fully utilized already. There is no one building commercial hops pickers available. The only one you can buy commercially is a reconditioned Wolf Harvester from Europe like that. So Foothill Hops, Larry Fisher built his own. Brewery Omegang is developing a picker right now, working with Cornell and engineering firms to develop a picker that they hope is mobile. The saving grace is the varieties. The aroma hops and the bittering hops mature at different times, so you do have some capacity spreading the season out, but once they're ready to pick, yes, you have to process to keep those alpha acid qualities in there and prevent spoiling. There's only so many green hop beers that are going to be made seasonally, so that's why you want to preserve the hop characteristics through freeze drying or drying, pelletizing, packaging in the light resistant packaging. So it really is a manufacturing and processing issue right now. Yes?
Here at SUNYIT in our interdisciplinary studies program, we do have a science, technology, and culture course that can have a focus on food. I'm one of the instructors who helps design and teach that. So some of us are thinking about food in society.
It's all.
One phenomenon that we've observed is that there is constant pressure to drive down the price of the raw materials for food. And I would like to know how that relates to this new legislation. Somebody's got to grow those hops, and yet there's always the downward pressure on those people's wages. Are there parts of the grants for things like health insurance for farmers, so farmers can dedicate their whole careers to growing rather than somebody doing another full-time job or 3 part-time jobs? Are we thinking about sustainability in terms of the people producing the food? Is that part of this legislation as it's being set up? And if not, could it
The farm brewery legislation is solely the licensing for production. What's driving the industry growth is the demand for local, which is a requirement of that legislation. I think once it's supply and demand. We had local taverns that would not take a totally local Madison County beer because to make a profit selling it, you had to charge $10 a pint. And some of these local communities are standing behind that and doing that. And these brewers are benefiting from that, bridging that gap and making it. But it takes a tavern owner willing to make that commitment and say, I believe that the consumer wants that, so we'll pay what you need for your local beer. And that's driven to the consumer. And the consumers are voting that they want local. And that's partly what drove this legislation. Has nothing to do about the farm labor issues.